And at this point, I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the Hollis School Board. First up on our agenda, any agenda adjustments?
I have none.
Okay. Anybody else? Agenda adjustments? Okay. Correspondence, resignations, and nominations.
I just wanted to let the board know we are finalizing our last opening, which is the guidance counselor up at Hughes. We've conducted interviews. We intend to make an offer in the coming days and hopefully have that person on board. Other than that, we are fully staffed in all professional places.
Excellent.
We do have openings for paraprofessionals, if there's anybody out there in the community. If there's some individual who maybe is not going back to college, is trying to figure out what they'd like to do, we have openings here. We also have openings in food service. We are down to 1 4-hour position for custodians. We've filled all the other positions.
That we still need, you mean?
That we still need 1 4-hour position. And Lance and Ben have been actively interviewing, so I think that will be able to be filled. And we are right now presently have a bus driver for every large bus and somebody for each of the vans. The bus routes have gone out. We're dealing with a couple of new developments where we've got some requests, and we're both Chief Hobecki and I are kind of doing some ride-arounds to figure out where the bus stops are and if those are appropriate and how much walking a child's doing and what's the visibility of those pieces. The bus company has done that in step 1, but a couple parents had concerns, so that's the process, and we'll be working with those families. We expect to open just like we finished in a very unrestricted environment. We do not anticipate at this time the need for doing regular COVID updates next year. We will monitor that internally, and as things come up, if numbers should spike or rise, we'll work with our school nurses and administration and then start a notification process. So it might be slightly different in each of the districts depending on how things go for individual buildings. And we'll have more on that at our September meeting. We have started the FY24 budget process. So we are in that process right now. I just want to put one piece on your radar. It's not for discussion tonight, but it's just kind of to put it out there. We're looking at the potential opening for environmental science at Hughes. That has always been a part-time position. As you know, we have an extensive program here at the elementary school, so we are going to enter into kind of a curriculum discussion and update the boards throughout budget season. The problem is we only have so many hours in a day. So if something came in, what may need to go, just to make it all work. But I just wanted to put that on your radar so it wouldn't be a surprise when we get to budget season, or that it may have to be looking at a swap. And we could elect ultimately to do nothing, but I think anytime we have an opening, it's good for us to have a discussion. And we've seen so many of the benefits from the current environmental program and where that takes us.
And
So
you're
we'll
talking about if something were to change, it would be for next school year.
correct. This school year is all
3-24.
set. It
Right.
would be with the FY24 budget. So we have a long process to go through there. So at the September meeting, we'll be able to give you a list of everybody and where they're at as far as final positions. But we are in very good shape, and I want to thank Gina, Paula, and Candy, and everybody who served on an interview committee for making all this happen this summer. And that's it for correspondence.
And no other resignations or nominations tonight?
No, the nominations are just for me to hire, so
Right.
as soon as that guidance person comes in,
Yes.
which is the committee recommendation,
Yep.
I would move forward.
And did we finalize the compliance position at the SAU?
Yes, we did. Alyssa Attar is taking that spot.
Okay.
She has already done a number of things. She's dealing with some right-to-know requests, the security grant that she worked on with Kelly to file, which we'll talk about later tonight. And what we're trying to do there is backfill her position, looking for a receptionist now.
Okay.
Actually, could I ask you about that? Did you have applicants? You had plenty of applicants?
For the communications position. There were a few applicants.
Good. That's all I wanted
But
to
there
know.
was very evident when we got into the process, because it was Gina and I on that committee, because that person worked closely with us, that the person that was best qualified was already working for us.
Oh, that's
and-
fine. I just wondered if you were able to attract applicants in the
Yeah.
sense of the labor pool. So it's good that you.
Yeah,
it's good that you
we're
were.
not seeing much right now for the receptionist,
Right.
so Alyssa is kind of doing double duty for the foreseeable future. Mhm. And we have not been able to fill Amy Rowe's position. We did have a candidate that we offered the position to, but it's very competitive, and they chose a different district.
So who is covering those duties?
Lauren has those duties, and as we get closer to the year, what we may do, because those are our out-of-district students, is do what I'll call stipends for specific administrators to cover those cases if need be.
All right, next on the agenda are the approval of minutes.
Yes. So we have a number of sets of minutes to go through, to approve. So I move to approve the minutes of the Hollis School Board public meeting on June 1st, 2022, with the following amendments. Page 4, line 38, insert "of" following the word "amount," and reminding Member Arthur that she should abstain, she was not in attendance.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, opposed? And abstained. Great, thank you.
Our second set of minutes, I move to accept the minutes of the public hearing from of the Hollis School Board, June 1st, 2022. No amendments, also Member Arthur abstaining.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstained.
We also have a non-public meeting from that month, so I move to accept the minutes of the Hollis School Board non-public session, June 1st, 2022. Ditto Member Arthur abstaining.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstained.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right. At this point, we are going to enter into our public hearing. May I have a motion that the board recess until the conclusion of the public hearing?
So moved.
And may I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? 500, the motion passes, so we are in recess at 6:10.
In your board packet, Business Administrator Seeley provided you with an update on our expendable trust for the public water system. A lot of people, I don't think, realize that the school board oversees the water system. It feeds our two buildings and a number of the different entities in the Main Street area. I do want the board to know that the town of Hollis, via their ESSER funds, is looking at the water situation from a global point of view. They have involved us, so we are in those discussions, and it's been a very productive conversation so far. They have a consultant on board who will come back with recommendations that could be, could be as easy as stay the way you are and do some maintenance. It could be drill separate wells for different areas. It could be a variety of different things. But part of the issue that we face is that there is only so much water. And in certain areas of town, it's very difficult. But what we're speaking about tonight is our expendable trust for the water system. So the request for FY22 is the emergency replacement of a digital flow meter, $1,564.30. A rebuild of 3 chemical feed pumps for $2,705.82. And replace a copper fitted and flange leading to the flow meter for $805.45. That gives a total expense of that we'd like to use the trust for of $5,076. The current balance of the trust is $35,990. That stems from our initial deposit about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, of $50,000, and we'll be looking at some number for this year's warrant. We had to be added in FY '23, we asked for nothing. The expenditures for FY '20 for the public hearing in FY '21 were $4,148. The 21-22 expenditures that we're talking about tonight are $5,076, which would give us an ending balance of $26,766. These are all elements that if we didn't take it out of the trust, we would still have to do the repairs. The repairs obviously are being completed, and then if it is approved to go through the trust, we would backfill the budget from the trust. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on the water system.
So you mentioned the emergency replacement of the digital flow meter. Has it failed, or is it basically ready to go?
That actually has, it has been replaced. It was an emergency replacement. It was
Gotcha, so
going-
we're-
Yes.
Got it.
Mhm.
And same thing with the copper fitting and flange?
Yes, yeah. And these are typically things that the Hollis School District budget prior to the trust would have simply paid for.
Right.
But we wanted to really start to show the voters what the expenses of the water system are as we move forward, so that's why we did the expendable trust.
Which I totally agree with. And then the rebuild of the 3 chemical feed pumps, it's not a huge dollar amount, but what is now the lifetime of them going to be? How much time does this get us on those feed pumps before they have to be replaced?
I mean, typically, we've done a rebuild in the co-op. The quickest one we've seen go is 5 years. Most life expectancy is another decade out of it.
Okay, cool.
And this is the chemicals that we put into the water to maintain that they meet the water testing, which is done on a monthly basis.
Perfect.
So
Thanks for
all
answering
out- And we meet all the requirements for lead. Every testing is done. It's done by an outside firm, and we get a monthly email of all the results that's monitored by our 2 lead custodians, Chuck in this building and Ed in the other building.
To build
Excellent.
on
Thanks, Amy.
Carol's question, though, is a rebuild, typically a part fails in something critical, we replace the part. Is a rebuild an indication that there are no replacement parts?
No, it's just simply, like,
A
I'll use an
cheaper-
example that helped me to understand it, because I don't necessarily understand the feed pumps, but it was similar to when we had to replace the lining, because it was a crack. It made much more sense to repair the crack than take the lining out and do it all over. So in this case, these feed pumps are similar to that. It was
Okay.
much easier to fix the feed pumps, get another.
Then replace them.
Yeah.
Costs a lot
Correct.
more money.
Correct.
Generally, electrical pumps and electrical motors can much easily be refurbished than replaced.
My question, Rob, was more, I was interested in, is this system aging out? Are we looking at, we need to start putting tons of money into
Fair
the trust to
question.
replace something because we can't replace it? Or that just this is the more reasonable, and you're just saying this is just simply the more efficient way to go?
This, yes, and a good useful life for this.
Good.
And it's standard, this is standard procedure, right? When they
Correct.
start to go, you
Correct.
Yeah.
rebuild them,
Yeah.
and then is it the second time they go, then it's replacement?
We work with a local company who does primarily most of the water work in town, and we follow their guidance, and they have been cautious and prudent, but at the same time, when something needs to be, replaced, they will tell us.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Thanks.
Am I reading this right? It says FY '20 was 4,000, and then FY '21, '22, does that mean that over 2 years, there was $5,000 in expenditures, and over the previous single year, there was 4,000?
So
Is that-
what you're reading is 4,000 in 1 year, 5,000 in the next year.
Okay,
We don't anticipate anything else going, and something could break,
Uh-huh.
and would come back.
Uh-huh.
But like I said, we would start out of the Hollis budget, then come back to the water trust fund.
and so, we don't have like a deeper history, but you may know, like, those numbers are pretty similar then? Is that sort of like the steady amount that yearly has to be invested to keep the system running
I
well?
would say around that, prior to my arrival, we had an issue with the water system in terms of leaks. So through the Hollis budget, they spent I'll say a decent sum of money in repaired leaks that go up to, because we pump up to the middle school, we pump up to town hall, and many of the residents in those areas.
It was thousands and thousands of
Yeah,
dollars.
but we're not a water district in terms of charging or revenue or anything like that.
No.
Huh.
We're just a.
We're stewards.
Stewards of, yeah,
We're not a utility.
right.
Okay,
So one of the
interesting.
problems is that the plumbing goes through the pond at the top of Rocky Pond Road. And so, you know, I remember, it was such an ordeal to try to figure out where the leaks were and where, without pulling it up, which was out of the question. And so there was a lot of work done back then before Andy came, when Eric was in charge of that.
Yeah, which is why we created the trust, because
Right.
there was a lot of expenses.
That suddenly, when they come up, they hit.
Yeah.
It looks good.
Thanks for the extra info, Andy.
No problem. Does it public comment?
Right, so at this point, I'll open the floor at 6:17 for public comment related to the Water System Expendable Trust Fund only. So if anyone has any comments about that, we may come to the microphone
They're
now.
beating down the door right now. Okay.
A lot of questions.
All right. So at 6:18, I am going to close the public hearing. And we are going to reconvene our regularly scheduled board meeting at 6:18 as well. Okay.
Do you need a motion to get back in, or are you good?
No, I think we're good. All right, at this point, I'm going to open the floor for public input. Conducts its business through meetings held in public, and all those present from the community are invited to stay and listen to the board's discussions, deliberations, and actions. Public input is permitted during the public input portion of our agenda, and when the chair opens the floor for public comment. At that time, public input is most welcome and encouraged. As per policy BEDH, when the floor is open for public input, individual speakers will be allotted 3 minutes per person. Please state your name and address for the record. And whenever possible, be as specific as possible as to the actions and the issue that you wish the board to take up and why. And generally, public input isn't really a back and forth, but we will note questions and address them during our deliberations. Okay, the floor is whoever would like.
Hi, Karen Belmonte, 46 Trull Road, Hollis. I would like to express my concerns about a change in the music programming at Hughes. Prior to COVID, students at Hughes were given the opportunity to participate in both band and music, and had the option to miss recess once a week for a lesson with all of the students that play their particular instrument. With the previous 6-day special rotation, that means that students had music instruction about 3 days. 1 band, 1 music, and 1 recess option instrument lesson. I'm really hoping the lesson part returns this year. As you're aware, the students now have to choose between band and music, which is a significant reduction in the music program. This began last year. I was disappointed, but I thought it was a COVID-related temporary change, so I was surprised to learn that students again have to choose between band and music. This change is definitely greatly reducing the amount of music education offered to Hughes students. Additionally, the Brookline schools are offered lessons about once a week before school, music class during school, chorus option during school, and orchestra twice a week after school. I understand that's a different district, but it's disappointing that my children will not have the same opportunities as the children that they'll be joining in 7th grade. Students today have missed many opportunities that were available prior to the pandemic. The last time my incoming 6th grader had a normal school year was 2nd grade. She missed her recorder concert in 3rd grade. She missed the opportunity to participate in a Hughes talent show, any Hughes after-school activities, and she missed music class last year. So I'm just asking you to please not make Hughes students choose between band and music. I think they've missed enough already. So I thank you for your time and attention to this matter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Hi.
You can pull it down to yourself.
Because I'm so short. I'm Andrea Levesque, 18 Sawmill Road. I'm just here because I heard about what, I share Karen's concerns when she told me about it. So I was a little bit disturbed that this is a material change, in my opinion, and I wasn't even aware that it had happened or that it was going to continue to happen. I've got a little one who's going into 4th grade, and I just am a little concerned that like it happened and it seemed to get slipped in a little bit. So I'm not quite sure like why it happened or what happened, what the justification for was it. The justification for it was, if it was for COVID, then obviously, we've kind of gone back to everything else. Why hasn't this gotten back to the way it was before? I read the email that she sent to the board, and she talks about how music is very important to her kids and her family. Well, I feel exactly the same way. I am a musician myself. I've released my own album. You can find it on Spotify. But none of that would have happened if it weren't for the robust music program that I was offered in my public school system back in Norfolk, Virginia. And what we have is is very small compared to what I was given. And being in New Hampshire where education is so great, I feel like for the most part my kids are getting better than me, but in that area they're not. So I do share her concerns, and I just want to find out what's going on and see if we can kind of get back to what we had before COVID, because we've lost so much through COVID. It'd be just great if we could get back to what we had. That's it. Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you, Andrea. Okay. Thank you very much for your input. Moving on to the principal's reports.
I just wanted to walk the board through a couple things. First of all, the dates. On August 8th, HPS will begin their virtual RTI Learning Academy. On August 22nd, Hughes has new student orientation at 10. On August 25th, HPS has incoming kindergarten and new students for grade 1 through 3 at 10 a.m. On the 29th, staff is back to school. It's amazing, we're excited. And on the September 1st is the first day for students. Both principals provided you some updates on the building and grounds, but I'm going to go over facilities a little later on, so I'm not going to go through that. But I did want to make you aware of some exciting news. 2 principals, after research and discussion with Paul Kapowicz, we are looking to take the next step forward by starting a sustainable food recycling program at HBS and Hughes. The program would be in partnership with Grow Nashua. We have a large amount of food that is wasted each day between breakfast and lunch service. It is our hope to create a food scraps diversion waste program. This program would teach everyone to throw the food scraps into receptacles which would be recovered, stored, and picked up by Nashua Grow. Our next step is to start working with Grow Nashua to write a grant for the startup cost. So both principals are presently doing that. And then we'll provide more information as it becomes available. Our goal is to try to get it up and running this year. We had some what I would call small pilot programs within certain classrooms as part of our environmental program here at HPS. And this is a natural expansion. And I think it's something that when we look to the future, these are part of the skill set that I think are going to become common for students. And getting that training is excellent. So I want, go ahead.
Sorry.
That's okay.
What are the startup costs? I know you're looking for a grant, but I'd love to know the ballpark.
I don't have that off the top of my head because Paula and Candy are working with this. I think it would be one of those things that if we weren't able to receive a grant, I would probably come back to the board because I think this is a program that is supported by our community and what we do with environmental. And when we look at our overall pre-K to 12 program, it aligns very nicely with where we'd like to go. So, they're pretty confident that we'll be eligible for one of the first grants by jumping in this early and already kind of having a quasi-pilot. But I'll bring back more information should money be the only factor.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy.
Just also want to make the board know that our current first graders numbers are currently on the high side. We're not over specs, but we are seeing growth, and we do see a number of houses still for sale. So we are monitoring that because of what I'll call the teaching shortage. We may look at a different solution than just starting a new classroom, which is sometimes what we do. So we may look at and then the principals, as always, provide their regular enrollment numbers for you to look at. And it's, it's below NESDAQ projections. NESDAQ has been running high, and where the big difference in NESDAQ, and it happens here in Brookline and with some of the other superintendents I've talked to, is the kindergarten numbers are not growing as expected. And part of that is some families have made the choice that at the young ages they'll delay enrolling in public school and continue with homeschooling because many parents still have the option of being remote. So that's where, if you notice, it's almost 19 different. If you added 19 in it, then, I mean, our numbers of NESDAQ and ours would be pretty much close together. Yep.
We'd definitely be shopping for another teacher.
Correct, yes. So that's the principal's update.
Questions, discussion, anything?
I'm thrilled about the news about Grow Nashua. I think that's fantastic, so I look forward to the update on that.
Yep, that's good.
I love composting.
Yeah.
So my 22-year-old was in the 3rd grade when they inaugurated the Turtle Garden and attempted to do this, and she and her best friend were the only kids who volunteered. But I think to do a food waste composting project that one of the teachers at the time tried to promote, I think this generation is a different generation. And having this organization behind it, creates a different momentum.
Right.
And I think it's going to be very successful.
I love that it just provides the kids the awareness,
Right.
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
the greater world
Right.
besides what's here.
Do you think you will be seeking, just like parents volunteer in the lunchroom, will you need parent volunteers to help with the learning of
I
sorting?
think ultimately, if it goes in the direction that Paula and Candy hope,
Mhm.
we would need some support for potentially our environmental science teacher, who obviously is taking the lead on this. But it'll also be interesting because we'll be returning to a more traditional cafeteria this fall for the
There'll be a
first
lot of
time.
new learning.
And as some of the parents spoke about, I mean, there'll be children who have not been in that setting
Yeah.
ever. You could be a 3rd grader and have never been in the traditional cafeteria. So it's going to be a learning curve with a lot of different things still,
Yeah.
even though we are pretty much through COVID.
That's my kid.
Yep, exactly.
And to your point, Andy, is there some point today that we'll hear more in response to what the public comment was, or is, I'm just curious what,
We can absolutely.
is this an appropriate time to?
We can put it, once I go through
Okay.
the discussion items, because I have touched base at Candy, and we are looking at it. I mean, part of the issue we face is just that length of the school day, kind of what I talked to you about with looking to add environmental up there, what would have to give. The piece is that when a group of students is taking music, which I fully support, there's another group of about the same size that we have to provide some sort of instruction for, and we can't necessarily move them along because that's not fair. So it's kind of this delicate balancing act, and this really changed because of an enrollment growth. When Candy had to move to the extra sections, you had to get away from what was the traditional piece. So we will talk about the Brookline model of before school or after school and a number of things, because at least that gives us greater flexibility. And I think for the majority of students who are looking for that program, their families are typically willing to do that early arrival or stay a little later. So we're going to look at a bunch of options. Candy's already done some research, but she's also balancing some days out of the district with trying to get this done as well. With the chair's permission, I'll go
Yes,
into.
yep, go
All
ahead.
right. I just want to start with facilities and give you an update, and if any board member wanted to take a quick tour around at the conclusion of our meeting, I'd be happy to walk you around and point out some different things. The Hughes roof is completed and done. The HB roof is, for all intensive purposes, done. Some of the solar panels have to still go back on because they had to come off. But from a roofing standpoint, those projects have been completed. You have new window frames in grade 1 and in the conference room down the hall. So that was the last, in the window frames putty was asbestos. That is and was our last asbestos at HPS that we're aware of. Okay, and I say that because this door right here is an example. That door has been installed to connect that classroom to here for a secondary means of egress. When we were installing that door, we came across a wonderful, kind of funny-looking substance. So we sent it out for testing. It came back negative, but that's what I mean, you know, like we thought we had done at the middle school, removed a counter and found some tiles that were 40 years old and had asbestos. So anytime you're dealing with old buildings, there's that potential, but we have great protocols in place. The minute the substance was detected, the custodians contact Lance and myself. We stop work and we get it tested, and we move forward from there. So right now, everything we know, there is no longer any asbestos in this building. So this is the entrance between grade 1 and the Library Media Center. It really serves two purposes. One is to kind of turn that into a better classroom, but from a security point of view, it also gives those children a secondary means of egress. Okay. In the second and third grade wing, the heat source air pumps are all up on the walls. The electrical and water pieces to make them fully functional by school will be completed in the next couple weeks. All the new tile flooring in designated classrooms has been done in this building. The reason we're meeting here tonight and not at Hughes is they are finishing the tiling up there. So Hughes front entry, gymnasium floor, first floor hallway are all getting tile, and then a new paint job.
I can't wait to see the finished product in the gym. It's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. The outside of the gym here has been prepped for the new siding. The new siding will match this building. There'll be two boards up near the top, if you where, from a visual point of view, where the Hollis Primary School sign is. Those two boards are going to be a blue color similar to the tabletop, just to kind of, from an architectural point of view, to have those pop, and that's where the name will be. That will significantly enhance the insulation of that end of the building. And I think between the solar panels on the roof and the insulation that we've done over the last few years, we'll start to see some benefits now that heating costs are going up and electrical rates are going up. The front office has gone through a slight reconfiguration. Both of the administrative assistants are out in the front section together. We did that to provide the SRO with his own office in this building and the upper school, so that he is readily available in the front of the building when he's assigned in this building. Bollards are ordered and will be coming, and those will be placed in the front of both schools to address that.
Andy, excuse me, the bollards are going where here? I have, in all these meetings, I keep forgetting to ask, where are you gonna put them?
The bollards will be outside the main doors. They will look, I would say, in the
But will
form
they
of a
be
planter.
currently where it says no parking, or will they be under the overhang?
Probably between the columns, specifically
Good.
measured
I
spaces.
mean, even today's meeting, I forgot to ask.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they will be in the form of
Look when we leave.
planters. So they will be, we will be putting fresh flowers in them during the appropriate seasons and that, but they also serve a safety piece of protecting
And you were
the front
saying the
doors.
SRO, you mean the school resource officer will have
Correct.
that front of house
Correct.
kind of office?
The
I love him, he's great.
All right, and I think that covers pretty much all the different things that have gone on from a facilities point of view. From a staffing, I did want to just again make people aware. We presently have an opening at Hughes for guidance. That is been interviewed for, and we do expect to move forward with that. Paula had a kindergarten position open up. That position has been filled. The kindergarten teacher went over to Brookline for a third grade position. She's always wanted to teach third grade. So, we wish her all the best, and we're excited she stayed with us. A little different us, but from my point of view, us. We are presently looking for paras. So if you know anybody in the community who's aware of that or anything on social media, we are actively interviewing. We're also in need of food service. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we have one part-time custodian open for 4 hours per day. And that has some flexibility to it for somebody who might be looking for a second job.
So like when those 4 hours can happen during the
Correct,
day? Got it.
correct. In terms of the building security, some things we'll talk about in non-public, which is allowed under the RSA now, but I just wanted to highlight some things so people would know and understand during the summer, this is a priority. First, we have met with the police chief in Hollis. He regularly meets with me and we discuss security pieces. So we are looking at providing them greater access to the building 24/7. If you read the research that came out of the most recent piece, part of the problem was getting into the building. So we're going to be taking some new pieces so an officer responding to a building would immediately have access. One of the pieces is a very simple one, but this door is not only makes for a better classroom, but it also provides security because those children now have a second means of egress, as well as people from the library have a means of egress to that room as well.
Is that an idea to do that in as many classrooms as possible, have two means of egress?
Pretty much every room
Everyone,
now
okay,
has that. When you see the new windows in the first grade, one of the things we'll point out, somebody of my height can still look into other rooms, but 99% of the population will no longer be able to see.
Andy's our lookout.
Yeah. Let me give you an example. If I was in the lower floor, I used to be able to be in those classrooms and look up and see first graders. Okay? So from a standpoint of somebody in the building, that's not what we want. This further really kind of still provides us all the natural light, all of those pieces provides us much greater security. You'll also see it with the removal of the windows of that conference room down the other end of the building. That serves two purposes, one to get asbestos out, but it was one of the things that the police chiefs had talked about, just, in some regards, less windows is good. I mean, we still obviously need windows, but as we know, when we did these windows around the whole perimeter of the building, they're very formidable window, well-designed, and ready to move us forward. We'll talk about a couple other pieces that the police chief has discussed with me later tonight. We will be doing another training with the police on August 25th. The administrative team will be at the high school. Those consist of what I call tabletop activities, where we practice what would happen if. The police chief has also basically, he requires all his officers to walk the building so that when they are responding here, it's not the first time they've been here. So when a new officer comes on board, they're assigned a mentor, just like we do with new teachers, and that mentor takes them around to all our facilities. We have spent probably over a year in preparation for the latest security grant that will be coming out. A primary piece that we'll be putting for the grant is communication devices that work across the entire SAU. So I could be sitting here and talking to the principal of CSDA. Because what happens when you do the research and you follow what's happened in some schools, the minute something happens, cell phone activity goes up so much that they become useless.
Oh.
Whether you look at 9/11, any catastrophic event, everything gets overloaded. So the Hollis Fire Department, Hollis Dispatch, and Brookline Ambulance and Fire came to us probably about a year ago? Yeah, just about a year ago. And they have been very actively involved with all our buildings for multiple years in security and safety, and said this is the way we needed to go next. So we're talking probably about $500,000. But each school will be able to get about $100,000 through the security and safety grant. So that's how
And
the
you're saying
budget.
these devices would be dedicated for emergency?
Correct.
They're
They're
dedicated
not-
lines, they can't be
Right.
interrupted by
Right.
cell phone use
Right.
of the general public.
So your school resource officer can talk to the Brookline Police, because the other piece is, one of the things that these two communities do really well is share resources. And we could have a Brookline police officer sitting right here in Hollis or vice versa. So we've really worked hard with both chiefs. Chief Quigley has been tremendous. And we feel this is a really good plan, and a couple other things I'll share later. The piece that will, if a school doesn't have $100,000 worth of walkie-talkies, because a smaller building may not, we continue to look at architectural design for main entrances. Is it very secure? But if you've been over to the high school recently, and if you haven't, you can take a trip. You go in now, and it's like bank teller windows, so you really cannot get out of the lobby without a designated purpose. The same exists at CSDA, and many of our schools are set up really well to continue those transitions. So we would include money for the planning and the architectural design, and then probably be looking to put that in the maintenance trust of that to do that. As we've gone through and done energy things, we've also done security things. So if you look at the door behind Tammy, that is a relatively new door. This next phase of our renovation will continue and replace all the doors. It still does have glass in it, it still has visual, but the glass has been minimized because of what is been recommended. I think the board is aware we work closely with New Hampshire Homeland Security, and we have done extensive work, and I can't stress enough the role that our SRO here and our SRO at the co-op play in those discussions. I can tell you that if all went well in a perfect world, Brookline will be looking at an SRO as well. That's part of their goal, and their police chief absolutely supports that. And I think the other piece is just the relationships we have.
Exceptional.
I think our students are very used to having our offices in non-threatening pieces, like coming to lunch, and we're going to return to those things. For 2 years, we haven't been able to do it. But, any officer who wants to come in and get a free school lunch, we'll always tell them that is most
They're
welcome.
only gonna show up
Pizza
on
day.
Friday.
It's a pizza day, it's like, but I'm really pleased with the progress we continue to make, and we'll be moving forward. And once we hear more about our grants, which I think are due late August.
We submitted them already.
Ours are in. That doesn't surprise me with Kelly. And again, I can't stress enough for the community to understand that we're talking about the Hollis Fire Department, the Hollis Dispatch, and the Brookline Ambulance and Fire and Police formulating this plan for us. They came to us and said, this is what you need, and then basically said, this is what you need to do. And we were planning to go after grants even if the state hadn't opened up, because it's the next logical step, or doing some phased-in approach. Because right now, we have certain walkie-talkies that can go from my office to the high school, but we need what's called a repeater to be able to make that happen with our Brookline folks. Because God forbid something happens, we want all the troops coming as quickly as possible, because that's the one thing you get out of every situation is response time. Is the sooner you're there, the sooner the incident
can
will
be
be dealt
handled.
with. Correct.
And I think you've talked in the past, Andy, but maybe not recently, about the safety committee that is formed by all of the agencies in town, and our administration, educators in the building, nurses, a wide safety net,
Right.
where you all get together. I've forgotten how often. I don't think, is it monthly? I don't think so. Quarterly?
Well, there's a couple pieces, and The first one is that we have a emergency management team,
Right,
that's the
that's what I
town.
meant, thank you.
And that's usually a quarterly or when we need to meet. And that's your fire, police, schools, everybody's involved. We go over scenarios like if a tractor trailer tipped over to hazardous waste. You know, how do we respond? What do we do for the kids?
And there are notebooks maintained for all these different scenarios that you've shown in the past. I just think the public should realize that there's a lot of time and forethought. This isn't a reaction to one incident or to headlines. This is really feet on the ground,
Right.
calm, rational
yeah.
thinking.
And the bus company's involved because
Right.
obviously they would be doing the pickup. We have practice drills of reunification
Right.
because I understand parents are concerned, but my job is to take them all to a safe place and then make sure that we get them to the right parent.
I mean, this
You know,
could be
so-
even a weather event. It could be
It could
any
be
kind of emergency. And
anything.
you've talked in the past about the breadth of kind of scenarios
Right.
that you.
And it
guys
is
work
anything.
on.
And we also have what we call a joint loss management team that does monthly inspections of our buildings. I'll give you an example in this building, and we can walk down and see it later, but in the cafeteria, if you were here 3 years ago, it was not padded. So now it was the concrete block. And little kids can tend to fall, and God forbid, they go head first into a concrete block.
They do tend to fall.
Yep. So the Joint Loss Management Committee identified that, and now that has padding around the entire gym. They go into teachers' classrooms, and to be quite honest, it's the summer, but that bookcase over there with those boxes on top of it, that teacher would be notified they have to be removed because that potentially with little ones could fall on somebody's head.
I mean, it won't be there in the school year. It's just temporary.
It won't be there at the
Right.
school year.
Right.
You know, we have a required, I want to say it's close to 30 hours that every teacher, superintendent, you name it, has to do of training. It's bloodborne pathogens, it's slip and fall, it's I don't stand on this table to get at the light bulb, I contact a custodian or I get a proper ladder. And Kerry Marsh in the HR department oversees that, and we all get regular reminders that those need to be completed.
All of us volunteers do those too.
Exactly.
So I do
Right.
that stuff too.
So we're kind of really trying to look at this globally, because again, yes, we do plan for a catastrophic event, but we really focus in on what's the day-to-day, because that's the safety piece for a student. You know, how do we do dismissal? You know, many of our elementary parents have moved to pick-up patrol, which is a nice feature, but it's very secure for us and really assists us. So there are a number of things going on. We wait to hear from the state grant, and as soon as that comes in, we'll give the board an update. But I do want the community to know that this is not, this is something we discuss on a regular basis. It's on our leadership meetings. It's the joint loss management team. And again, it's not that popular with teachers at times, because you can imagine if you're the teacher whose stuff is on top of the piece, you know, you're like, really? I got nailed again? But again, and we do the same thing from an IT point of view. I hate to say it, but we send out, just like most companies, phishing emails so that staff gets used to what to respond to and what not to respond to, because our data is very sensitive, you know. We are a $50 million corporation with extensive data, and we have to take all the precautions that we can to protect that data and the financial resources of the SAU.
Andy, I have a question. You were mentioning the high school lobby with kind of the teller windows. And I think of the lobby of the building we're in right now, where you can talk to them through 2 sets of doors,
Yeah.
but there's nowhere that they can be in the building but secured from coming any further. Is part of the discussion about improving the front of
Yes.
HPS?
Yes.
Okay.
Because in the natural process of the grants, the doors eventually are going to be trained out. Part of the problem we face right now is supply chain issues,
Okay.
you know, like every
We're
other
really
place.
struggling.
But now with the both secretaries in the front viewing windows, we will not have instances where maybe they both went the same place because they used to be in 2 different offices, so there was a lack of coverage. and now putting the SRO there gives us a much better presence. And then as the community may or may not be aware, we're what I call a fob district. So every staff member has to fob in, and every fob is unique. So every time Andy Corey enters the building, there's a record of that.
You're like, he's here.
Yep. Get the boxes off the top of the cabinet. And then what we did during COVID that we'll keep with the practice is everybody fobs out. So now we have, you started, you ended.
Like
and-
end of their day or like
End
when they
of
go
their
out for
day.
When you
recess?
leave, so that way we
yeah.
know who's in the building.
Yeah.
Let's say there's an emergency, we want to know who was in and who do we need to identify.
Kind of the accountability
Yeah,
drills.
especially when we
Correct.
have so many employees that are in multiple buildings. So it's like, oh, they're at Hughes. Oh, no, they're at HPS, but really, where are they and how do we account for them?
Right.
Perfect.
And then we do a series of drills with the bus company, the bus evacuation drills, hoping to never use them, but those are practice, and it's always amazing to me because you see the sixth graders rise to the occasion because they have to get the little ones off. And to jump off the back of a bus in the first grade, it's a long way down. And you watch those sixth graders and they become very serious and very mature and responsible, and it's always, I was a parent too, and it's nice to know once in a while our children can step up and be mature and responsible. And I get to see that. And sometimes as parents, we don't always see that. So really, when you think about everything we do from food service, all our procedures around how we handle food, how we cook food, it all comes under that umbrella of safety and security. I know we're all focused in on some of the tragedies that have occurred, and yes, we, like every other district, do that. But for us, it's more everything we do, what's our procedure, what's our practice. And if you're not aware, Kelly and Gina ultimately oversee those. So I's are dotted and T's are crossed. It's two people that are very type A. Not
a compliment.
It's a compliment. It's not a random person like me. I mean, you have to have the right people doing the right things. And Bob Ouellette used to be kind of the chair of that committee. As you know, Bob at the high school retired, so Dan Molinari over in Brookline has taken over that role. So we're in good shape. We also do CPR and first aid training, so the vast majority of our staff, at times 100%, are trained, but we're so fluid in staffing sometimes that we're constantly running trainings.
What's the timing on hearing about whether or not we got the grant?
I would think we'd know,
I think by the end of this month, actually.
Oh, great,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, because the next round will come out for people to apply who didn't get this first round.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
And did you say the source of the grant is the state of New Hampshire?
yes, the governor has set aside, I think it was 13 million in safety and security for schools, but each school had to apply.
Got it.
So
Can we apply in more than one round, or if we get it in the first round?
they're,
Yeah, no, I think if you get it in the first round, then you're good for this supply of money.
Okay, gotcha.
But the first round was available for a short window, only for public schools, right around the time when a lot of superintendents were brand new. So I'm hoping that that will serve us well, having been prepared and submitted right away. This next round is for public schools, but also private entities. So it's going to be a little bit more competitive in the
Right.
next round, so.
Private entities, private schools? Or is it businesses
It's
as
open,
well?
yep, businesses as well.
Gotcha.
Well, great job on getting in on the first round then, well done.
And at times, we have been able to go back and get more funding because we have been prepared, because the plan for the state is to expend the money. They just want to make sure that each school district is having equal access to the safety and security.
Awesome.
All right. Shall we move on to deliberations?
Yes,
Anything else? All right, to see what action the board will take regarding the business administrator's recommendation regarding the unreserved fund balance.
in your board packet, you had a memo from Kelly Seeley, the business administrator, with her recommendation. She's recommending the retained fund balance be maintained at its present funding level of $284,000 for the following reasons. It ensures the retained fund balance is tax neutral as compared to last year's tax rate. The school district budget already contains a contingency fund of $95,000. The district has a maintenance trust fund if urgent repairs are required, which can be used to supplement the retained fund balance with proper approvals. So when we look at an unexpected piece, the first thing we would do is go to the budget. If it was based specifically on a child who maybe was new to the district that had services required, we would look at the special education trust. If the next piece would be for another expense, something that was unexpected, we would go to the operating budget. If we could do it out of the operating budget, we would probably start that way. Then we would come to the board and say, okay, because of this expense, it was unanticipated, where the budget's at, we believe we should utilize the contingency fund. I think we've used it once since I've been here, and that was for a teacher when enrollment went up. And we didn't anticipate that. Then, if the expense was bigger than that, we would go to this unreserved fund balance. The goal, pretty much from year to year, in Kelly's first point, is to remain tax neutral. So the 284 is what we funded last year. She's recommending we maintain that, and we'll continue to do that for the foreseeable future until something changes that makes us reflect differently on that. So what her motion is asking for the board to approve that dollar amount, which allows us to retain those excess funds, which means they do not go back to the taxpayers to offset the tax rate, but the likelihood of us going to the taxpayers for something unexpected would be something as significant like many, many years ago when we had mold.
Right.
Would be that. I think everything else, whether it be the water system, a building, something like that, would be able to cover under these different areas. So Kelly provided the motion, just because it's always provided her from legal, at the bottom of her memo.
And it should be pointed out, the motion is for a sum up to $284,000. It's a very responsible approach to this
Right.
fund.
And we will be able to fund it based on revenues. We're in the midst of the audit right now. They'll be with us this week and most of next week. And then come the September meeting, we'll probably have final audit numbers. In Hollis, traditionally, the audit goes to the Hollis Budget Committee unless there's an issue. And the Budget Committee, under their purview, deals with the audit information. If there's an issue with it, then it also comes to the school board and we resolve any issues. We just finished my 8th year. We've had all clean audits since Kelly became our business manager. I don't necessarily see anything changing this year.
All right, may I have a motion?
Do you want me to read it through? Sure. I move to accept the business administrator's recommendation to retain the sum of up to $284,000 of school fund balance from the FY22 school year as the end of year available funds allow.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Well, it's a good motion.
Such hesitation.
Is there any further discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? 5-0-0, the motion passes. Okay, to see what action the board will take regarding the business administrator's recommendation regarding the Hollis School District's expendable water trust. Do I have a motion?
To refresh, was that the one during the public hearing?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. I can make that motion. Hold on, let me read.
Do you want her to have it on paper?
I think I'm good, here we go.
Okay.
I move that the, oh, no,
Here.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'll take
take
it.
it.
I move to authorize the expenditure of to accept Kelly Seeley's recommendation to authorize the expenditure of $5,076 from the Hollis School District Water System Expendable Trust Fund for the purchase of the maintenance items identified during the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? 5-0-0, the motion passes.
Thank you for your paper copy. I haven't scrolled through it.
You are welcome. And the last deliberative item, I believe, is policy JLDBB, suicide prevention and response. I'll put a motion, and then we can discuss it.
Do you want me to take the motion then? To
Sure.
see, I got it here. To see what action the board will take regarding policy JLDBB, suicide prevention and response, giving its second reading.
Second.
Oh,
Okay.
Sorry,
to
that's
accept the
fine.
second reading
Right.
of policy JLBD, yeah, sorry, I read the wrong thing. Should I
That's
read
right.
it in again?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Motion to accept the second reading of policy JLDBB, suicide prevention and response.
Second, again.
Great. Okay, discussion.
So this is being presented, just as you saw it last month, with no changes. So we're looking for a second reading. Once again, it's based on the prevention plan that was presented and provided by our Director of Student Services.
Can someone refresh me when we talked about this on first reading last time? Did we have any feedback about changes, or we just accepted without changes, right? That's what I thought. Okay. Yeah, I didn't see any changes in the latest, so I figured that was the case as well.
Any further discussion? Okay.
If you have any feedback, you can share it with the committee.
So is there a reason why we're doing second reading and holding a third, or would we want to adopt after second reading? Does anybody have any hesitation, or it's just a
Well, in
thought? I know we've done that
principle-
with a couple that we haven't changed before.
In principle, a new policy gets 3 readings. It's just,
Oh,
the
since it's
idea
brand new,
is
got it.
because it's brand new and for the public to see it. But to
Thanks
your
for reminding me.
point, to your point, if this is important for the school district to have in place for start of school, then we should consider that.
Granted, it will be the 4th day of school at our next meeting, so we won't be too
Whichever.
deep into it, but.
And to be honest, the content is legally required content has already been in place in the school, so I don't know if the formality of an adoption of the policy really has an impact on the start of school.
Okay, then let's, in my opinion, we can follow what Tammy was saying. I'd forgotten that this was the brand-new policy that we had seen, so I'm fine with not adopting right now.
Right, it gives the public, like you said, another opportunity to provide input if they
Exactly.
have it.
Yeah, and it's not like we're not meeting for an extended period of time after this.
Right. Okay, so all in favor of accepting the second reading? 500, the motion passes. Okay, we have a non-public tonight, so may I have a motion to enter non-public?
Yes, I can read it officially. I move that the board by roll call go into non-public session pursuant to RSA 91-A:3, Section 2A, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, and C, to discuss a matter which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of a person other than a member of the body or agency itself.
And if I could, Madam
Yes.
Chair, just add I, because we're going to talk about safety,
Okay.
which Dawn wasn't, I don't think Dawn was aware of. That's why she put I.
Got it.
I just want to make sure people.
And our list says consideration of matters relating to the preparation for and the carrying out of emergency functions.
Correct.
Per the
In this case,
RSA.
the emergency function is security.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Thank you.
So added,
Yep,
Section
thank you.
I of that policy, or that RSA as well.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and by roll call?
Carol, Roy, aye.
Rabbi?
Tammy, I.
Brooke, aye.
Amy, aye. Okay, so we are in non-public at 7:05.
If we could just